Over 100 million Americans are expecting a tax refund this year, but some taxpayers, an increasing number of them of late, are going to learn their refund has instead been stolen. It's part of a scam network that grabs the money right out of the IRS. It's growing fast, it's brazen, it hits people in every walk of life. Kate Snow has our report.
The Tampa Bay area is probably best known for its warm weather and white sandy beaches. But these days, the city of Champions has another claim to fame as ground zero for an epidemic that's sweeping the nation. It sounds mundane, but tax refund fraud is now one of America's fastest growing crimes.
Initially, when we saw it, it was certain areas of Tampa. Then it was the whole city, the whole county, the surrounding counties, the whole state of Florida, and it just took off.
Detective Sal Legere drove us through areas where he says the fraud is so lucrative it surpassed the drug trade.
How you doing?
No gunfire or car chase is necessary. All it takes is a few clicks with a mouse.
I had a drug trafficker tell me I can go out there and sell a kilo or two of cocaine, hopefully make 5-10 grand. He says, but I have to worry about being arrested. I may get shot. I may have to shoot the guy. I can do tax returns. I can submit 10 a day. I've made myself $40,000, $50,000. He goes, and I can watch cartoons while I'm doing it. No stress.
You essentially have guys trading guns for laptops?
Exactly.
Here's how it's done. First, a thief steals your identity. They get a hold of your name, date of birth, and social security number. Then they file a fake return with the IRS and obtain a refund.
How easy is it to steal someone's identity and file a tax return?
It's been very easy for quite a long time.
Who's susceptible to being victimized by this crime?
Everybody.
And Jerry isn't kidding. Victims have ranged from this 1-year-old to a soldier who had a fraudulent return filed in his name after he was killed in Afghanistan. Nearly 1 million taxpayers across the country have been hit in the past year alone.
If you had to describe what the last 4 years have been like for you?
Hell.
Sheila Vostiganis had no idea her personal information was compromised until her accountant tried to file her 2009 tax return online.
Our CPA goes to file them and he calls and said, there's a problem. It got kicked out.
What do you mean it got kicked out?
Well, something came up on the screen that said we'd already filed.
Had you filed?
No, we had not. He said you need to contact IRS right away.
And that, Sheila says, is when her nightmare began.
Frustrating, scary, aggravating, and time-consuming. I was constantly on the phone, here at work, at home.
Did this almost become like a full-time job for you?
It was a part-time job for sure.
Sheila discovered the burden was on her to prove she was the real Sheila Vostiganis and that she deserved her very real $5,700 refund.
How long did you wait for that refund?
It was a long time, and my husband and I were dealing with my mother in hospice at the time, so certainly could have used that money at that time also.
How many of you have been victims of tax fraud? Did any of you get a letter from the IRS or some kind of warning that maybe you'd been compromised? None of you. And how many of you are police officers?
That's right, police officers. They're all from the town of Davie, Florida, near Fort Lauderdale, and somehow they all had fraudulent tax returns filed in their names.
About how big is your force here?
Currently, we're 170 sworn officers.
And how many of those officers have had their identities stolen?
Going back to 2010, there's probably been about 134 total number.
That's more than half the force?
Yes.
Detective Paul Williams says as soon as he heard fellow officers had been victimized, he called the IRS to warn them that he might be next.
I asked them if there was a way that they could stop it or put a blocker or something. They said they had no way of doing it. I went into my accountant 2 days later to try to file my taxes electronically, and right there in his office it got sent back to him.
Somebody had already filed.
Somebody had already got it within 2 days.
Even though you'd warned the IRS a couple days earlier and said, you know, someone might try to do this to me.
And I think that's the most frustrating part.
Why?
There was nothing they could do to stop it.
Did any of you get any information from the IRS as to who had stolen your identity, what address the refund had been sent to?
No. I asked the IRS. I asked, who it is, where they might be. We don't give that information.
That's been one of the hardest parts for Sergeant Rob Choquette.
If they were to share information, we may have been able to arrest people or at least start investigations and take leads from the information that they have. but they're unwilling to share with us. They don't give us any information, and we're law enforcement.
That's because IRS code prohibits the agency from disclosing any taxpayer information, even to a victim of fraud.
If you were going to give a grade to the IRS, A to F, what would be the grade?
D or F?
F.
F.
F. F.
Absolutely an F.
F.
The Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration gave the IRS failing marks, too, for the terrible customer service, for the months or years it can take to fix a problem, and for failing to flag multiple refunds, sometimes hundreds, even thousands, going to a single address. But the biggest headline, the IRS paid out more than $5 billion in fraudulent refunds in just 1 year. And until recently, arrests and prosecutions were rare.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what was the risk of a perpetrator being caught for this kind of fraud?
Initially, there was zero risk. The reward far outweighed the risk. They would basically laugh at law enforcement.
This how-to guide was confiscated at a jail. Prisoners teaching other prisoners how to cash in. Step 1, get a laptop. Step 2, get some social security numbers, birthdays, and full names. As shown in this undercover police video, on the street, that kind of information can go for as little as $10.
And they get these social security numbers and names and date of birth from where?
We've seen medical facilities compromised, insurance companies, facilities that have client-based information that's stored.
When they electronically file with the IRS, the thieves usually ask for their refund to be direct deposited. All the IRS sees is an account number. But actually, many thieves are having the money deposited onto a debit card.
In all your years of law enforcement, you seen anything like this before?
Yes. 1985, when I came on, crack cocaine pretty much was just hitting the street. And before you knew it, we were just inundated with it here. But in this case, obviously, they're using debit cards and Treasury money's the drug. This is nothing more than crack cocaine on a plastic card.
Those debit cards are designed for people who don't have bank accounts, issued by companies like Green Dot, H&R Block, and NetSpend. All a thief has to do is swipe and pay.
So once they get the card in the mail, it's like free money, it's cash.
Correct. They don't have to show ID, and they recover the money that they want to get.
When the money hits the debit card, they call it a drop, celebrated in rap videos like this one.
Tax season again. I need a drop, old bitch.
And the crooks are dropping some serious cash on luxury items like high-end cars. Have a look around the Tampa Police Department's impound lot. There's a Jaguar, custom paint jobs, and this Mercedes, which police say belonged to Rashia Wilson. They allege she boasted about her crimes on Facebook. "I'm Rashia, the queen of IRS tax fraud," Wilson wrote last May. "I'm a millionaire, for the record, so if you think indicting me will be easy, it won't." But Wilson and her boyfriend Maurice Larry are among the rare ones who were indicted. Investigators say they raked in more than $1 million, filing over 220 fraudulent tax returns. And they flaunted it. Police seized one of his most prized possessions, this custom-made Camaro, filmed by Riding Clean magazine. TV in the back, over-the-top sound system, every rim, police say, paid for at taxpayers' expense. And all while Wilson was receiving public assistance. Wilson and Larry have pled not guilty. If convicted, they each could face more than a decade in prison.
Do you think there was a sense among the criminals that they weren't really stealing from anyone in particular, that they're just getting free government money?
Yeah, it wasn't like they came up to you, put a gun in your face, and took the money out of your pocket. It was just somebody's name, somebody's social security number, and really, what's the big deal?
But they're holding up the federal government.
Sure they are. Yeah, they're robbing us blind.
This is an incredible story. We'll break here. When we come back, Kate Snow questions a top IRS official about what they're doing to combat this fraud and help the victims we've met, like Sheila.
When the IRS says that they have flags in place now to detect fraud,
I don't believe them.